The city of Cryon pulsed with chaos, its towering crystal spires glinting under a sky torn apart by plasma blasts. Ethan Kane, a human bodyguard with a knack for surviving bad odds, sprinted through the rubble-strewn streets, his boots crunching against shattered glass. His pulse rifle hummed in his hands, but his real weapon was the stubborn grit that kept him moving. Hired by the Cryonites, a species of lithe, silver-skinned warriors who thought humans were one step above space roaches, Ethan was here to protect Commander Solara, an elite fighter who'd made it clear she didn't need him, or want him, or even tolerate him. Solara dashed ahead, her twin blades flashing as she cut through a drone swarm with the grace of a storm. Her long, iridescent hair whipped behind her, catching the light of explosions like a comet's tail. Ethan couldn't help but notice how her armor hugged her form, accentuating her strength and curves in a way that made his heart race for reasons beyond the firefight. Not that he'd ever admit it. She'd probably slice him in half for even thinking it. "Keep up, human," Solara barked, her voice sharp over the comms. "Or do your fragile bones need a break already?" Her tone dripped with disdain, the kind Ethan had heard from every Cryonite since he'd arrived on their war-torn planet. To them, humans were soft, slow, and breakable, barely worth the air they breathed. Ethan grinned, dodging a laser bolt that scorched the ground beside him. "Fragile? Lady, I've been running since you were still sharpening those knives. Try me." He didn't expect her to laugh. Cryonites weren't big on humor, but he caught a flicker of surprise in her violet eyes before she turned away. The mission was supposed to be simple. Escort Solara to a secure bunker while Cryon's defenses held off an invasion by the Zorith, a rival species with a nasty habit of turning cities into ash. But nothing was simple on Cryon. The Zorith had breached the outer perimeter hours ago, and now the streets were a maze of fire and death. Ethan's job was to keep Solara alive, even if she acted like she'd rather die than owe him anything. They rounded a corner, and Solara skidded to a halt, her blades raised. A Zorith war drone, 6 feet of spiked metal with glowing red optics, hovered before them, its cannons charging with a menacing whine. Ethan instinctively stepped in front of her, rifle ready, but Solara shoved him aside with a force that nearly knocked him flat. "Stay back, human," she hissed. "This is no place for your kind." She lunged, her blades carving arcs of light as she dismantled the drone in seconds, its pieces clattering to the ground. Ethan raised an eyebrow, impressed but not surprised. Cryonites were born for war, their bodies honed by centuries of combat. Humans. They were the scrappy underdogs, always underestimated. "Nice moves," Ethan said, brushing off his jacket. "But you're going to need more than fancy swordplay to get through this mess. Stick with me, and I'll get you to that bunker." Solara's eyes narrowed, her silver skin shimmering faintly under the ash-streaked sky. "I lead, you follow. That's the deal. Or do humans lack the discipline to obey?" Her words stung, but Ethan caught the faintest tremor in her voice. She was tough, but the war was wearing her down. He'd seen that look before, on soldiers, on friends, on himself. Before he could respond, a deafening explosion rocked the street, sending them both sprawling. Ethan hit the ground hard, his ears ringing as debris rained down. He scrambled to his knees, scanning for Solara. She was a few yards away, struggling to stand, her left leg pinned under a chunk of crystal rubble. Blood, bright blue, seeped from a gash in her thigh, and her blades lay just out of reach. "Solara," Ethan shouted, crawling toward her as another blast lit up the sky. The Zorith were closing in. He could hear the screech of their war machines echoing through the city. Solara's eyes met his, wide with pain, but burning with defiance. "Leave me," she growled. "Try to push the rubble off. I won't be a burden to a weakling like you." Ethan snorted, already at her side, his hands gripping the jagged crystal. "Weakling? Keep talking, Commander. It's the only thing keeping me from leaving you here." He heaved, muscles straining, and the rubble shifted just enough for her to pull free. She gasped, clutching her leg, and Ethan didn't hesitate. He scooped her up, one arm under her knees, the other supporting her back, and started running. Solara stiffened in his arms, her face a mix of shock and outrage. "Put me down," she snapped, but her voice wavered as another explosion shook the ground. "I can walk. Yeah, and I can sing opera," Ethan shot back, weaving through the wreckage. "But right now, you're bleeding, and I'm not letting you die on my watch. So shut up and let me do my job." Her protests faded as he carried her, his heart pounding not just from the weight, but from the heat of her body against his. Cryonites were lighter than humans, but Solara's presence was anything but delicate. She radiated strength, even wounded, and Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that carrying her was more dangerous than facing the Zorth. They ducked into an alley as a Zorth patrol roared past, its searchlights sweeping the ruins. Solara's breathing was shallow, her hand gripping his shoulder tighter than she probably meant to. Ethan glanced down, catching her staring at him, not with scorn, but with something else. Confusion? Curiosity? Whatever it was, it made his pulse race faster than the war around them. "You're stronger than you look," she muttered, almost too quiet to hear. Ethan smirked, adjusting his grip. "And you're heavier than you look. Must be all that ego." Her eyes flashed, but before she could retort, a shadow loomed at the alley's end. A Zorth war beast, its claws glinting like knives. Ethan's stomach dropped. This wasn't just a patrol. It was a hunt. He set Solara down behind a shattered wall, his rifle already raised. "Stay put," he whispered. "This one's on me." Solara grabbed his arm, her grip fierce. "You can't fight that alone. You'll die." Ethan met her gaze, his grin reckless. "Fragile, huh? Watch me prove you wrong." The alley was a chokehold of shadows and smoke, the warbeast's guttural snarl vibrating through the shattered crystal walls. Ethan crouched low, pulse rifle steady, his breath fogging in the frigid cryonite air. Solara leaned against the rubble behind him, her injured leg trembling, but her violet eyes blazing with stubborn fire. She told him to leave her, twice now, but Ethan wasn't the type to ditch a job, especially not when the paycheck was a 7-foot alien warrior who just started looking at him like he wasn't total garbage. "Stay down," he whispered, eyeing the beast as it prowled closer. It was a Zorth nightmare. 8 legs, claws like scythes, and a maw that could swallow him whole. "I've got this." Solara's grip tightened on his arm, her voice a low growl. "You're insane. That thing will shred you." Ethan flashed a grin, adrenaline buzzing through him. "Insane's my specialty. Just watch." He didn't wait for her protest. There wasn't time. The war beast lunged, and Ethan rolled, firing a burst of plasma into its flank. The shots sparked off its armored hide, barely slowing it down, but they bought him a second to think. Humans didn't have cryonite speed or Zorth bulk, but they had something better, a knack for turning crap situations into wins. The beast swung a claw, and Ethan ducked, feeling the wind of it ruffle his hair. He spotted a glint in the alley, a fallen cryonite spear, its tip still glowing with residual energy. Perfect! He dove for it, skidding across the glass-strewn ground, and snatched it up just as the war beast charged again. With a grunt, he jammed the spear into a crack in its armor, right where the leg met the torso. The beast howled, rearing back, and Ethan yanked the weapon free, blue blood spraying across his jacket. "Fragile, huh?" he panted, glancing at Solara. Her jaw was slack, her eyes wide. Not with scorn this time, but something closer to awe. Before she could respond, a deep rumble shook the alley, and Ethan's stomach sank. That wasn't just one war beast. It was a pack. "We need to move," Solara said, struggling to stand. Her leg buckled, and Ethan caught her, slinging her arm over his shoulder. "No arguments this time," he said, half dragging her toward the alley's end. "We're a team now, whether you like it or not." She glared but didn't fight him, her weight leaning into him as they stumbled through the chaos. The city was a Warzone maze, crumbling spires, burning streets, and a relentless screech of Zorth machines closing in. Ethan's original mission had been to get Solara to the bunker, but that plan was toast. The bunker's coordinates were now behind enemy lines, and their comms crackled with static, Cryonite command was either jammed or gone. "We're cut off," Solara said, her voice tight with pain and frustration. "The Zorth must have hit the relay towers." Ethan scanned the horizon, spotting a plume of smoke rising from the eastern sector. "Then we improvise. There's a Zorth outpost that way, probably where they're coordinating this mess. If we can get in, grab their comms data, we might turn this around." Solara stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "You want to infiltrate a Zorth stronghold? With me like this?" She gestured to her leg, blue blood staining her armor. "Yep," Ethan said, adjusting his grip on her. "You're the muscle, I'm the brains. We've got this." Her laugh was sharp, almost bitter. "You're delusional, human. And you're still alive because of it," he shot back, smirking. "Come on, Commander. Let's make him regret inviting us to this party." The trek to the outpost was a gauntlet of danger. Ethan half-carried Solara through ruined streets, dodging drone patrols and weaving past smoldering wreckage. Every step was a gamble, but he kept moving, his mind racing for solutions. Solara was quiet at first, her pride bruised, but as they neared the eastern sector, she started pointing out weak spots in the terrain. Cracks in the crystal that could hide them. Old cryonite, traps the Zorth hadn't found yet. "You're not as useless as I thought," she muttered after he used one of her tips to scur patrol. "High praise," Ethan said, winking. "Keep it coming. I'm a sucker for flattery." She rolled her eyes, but there was a spark in her expression that hadn't been there before. They were still bickering, still worlds apart, but the gap was shrinking, forged in the heat of survival. The Zorth outpost loomed ahead, a fortress of jagged metal bristling with turrets. Ethan set Solara down behind a toppled spire, his breath ragged from carrying her. She gripped her blades, testing her leg. It held barely. "No way we're storming that front door," she said, scanning the defenses. "We'd be ash in seconds." Ethan grinned, pointing to a narrow vent shaft on the outpost's lower wall. "Good thing I'm not big on front doors. That's our ticket in." Solara frowned. "Too small for me." "But not for me," he said, already moving. "I'll slip in, kill the security, and open a path for you. Sit tight." Her hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. "Ethan, wait. If you get caught." He met her gaze, surprised by the worry in her voice. "I won't. Trust me, Solara. I'm too stubborn to die." She hesitated, then released him, her fingers lingering a moment longer than necessary. "Don't prove me right about humans," she said softly. Ethan nodded and crept toward the vent, prying it open with a grunt. The tunnel was tight, the air thick with the stench of oil and plasma, but he wriggled through, his human flexibility giving him an edge no cryonite could match. Inside, the outpost buzzed with activity. Zorth guards clomping through corridors, drones whirring overhead. Ethan stuck to the shadows, his pulse pounding as he navigated toward the control hub. He found it, a room packed with consoles, guarded by a single Zorth tech. Ethan waited, then struck, slamming the butt of his rifle into the alien's skull. It crumpled, and he darted to the controls, hacking the unfamiliar system with a mix of guesswork and grit. Alarms went silent. Locks clicked open. Success. "Path's clear," he whispered into his comms. "Your turn, Commander." Solara slipped in minutes later, blades drawn, her limp less pronounced now. She surveyed the room. Then Ethan, her expression unreadable. "You actually did it." "Told you," he said, grinning. "Humans don't quit." She stepped closer, her voice low. "Maybe I was wrong about you." Before he could tease her, a screen flared to life, displaying Zorth troop movements, hundreds converging on Cryon's last defenses. They had the data, but the real fight was just beginning. The Zorth control room pulsed with a dim glow of alien tech, its holographic map casting red shadows across Ethan's face as he studied the swarm of enemy dots closing in on Cryon's last defenses. Beside him, Solara stood rigid, her twin blades still slick with Zorth blood, her injured leg trembling but her stance unyielding. The air crackled with tension, and maybe something else, as they faced the reality of their situation, cut off, outnumbered, and running out of time. We need to send this data to Cryonite Command, Solara said, her voice cutting through the hum of the consoles. They can turn this war around. Ethan shook his head, his fingers already tapping the alien controls. Comms are fried, Commander. And even if they weren't, your people are too busy dying to act on it. We've got to hit the Zorith now, ourselves. Solara's violet eyes narrowed, a spark of irritation flaring. You mean storm their command center? 2 of us against an army. Not storm, Ethan said, pointing to a thin cluster of dots on the map. Sneak. Their command hub's underguarded. Arrogant bastards think we're done. We take it out, their whole operation goes blind. Your cryonites get a fighting chance. She studied the map, then him, her silver skin catching the light in a way that made Ethan's throat tighten. You're mad, she said, but there was a flicker of curiosity in her tone. And I'm half crippled. How do you expect me to keep up? You've got me. Ethan shot back, flashing a grin. I carried you this far, didn't I? Besides, I've got a plan. Another human trick? Solara asked, her voice dry, but edged with something warmer. Amusement, maybe. The best kind, Ethan said, leaning closer to the console. We overload their power grid from here. Big boom, big distraction. They'll think it's an outside attack, and we slip in while they're scrambling. Solara's gaze lingered on him, assessing. Risky. If it fails, we're dead. If it fails, we're dead anyway. Ethan countered, meeting her stare. Trust me, Solara. I don't quit. For a heartbeat. She said nothing, then nodded sharply. Show me what you've got, human. Ethan dove into the Zorith system, his hands flying over the controls with a mix of guesswork and grit. Solara hovered at his shoulder, her sharp instructions cutting through his fumbling. Together, they jury-rigged the overload sequence. The console beeped, a countdown flashing, 10 minutes. Time to move, Ethan said, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. That's our window. They bolted through the outpost corridors, Ethan in front, Solara limping behind, but refusing to slow. The place was a ghost town, guards drawn off by the chaos outside. But as they neared the exit, fate laughed in their faces. A squad of Zorith grunts burst around a corner, their jagged rifles glowing with lethal intent. Down! Ethan yelled, shoving Solara behind a crate and unloading a burst of plasma. One Zorith dropped, but the others returned fire, bolts sizzling past his head. Solara leapt up, her blades a whirlwind despite her injury, slicing through armor like it was paper. She was a force of nature, but Ethan saw the strain. Her leg buckled mid-strike, leaving her open. A Zorith lunged, its claw arcing toward her chest. Ethan didn't think. He tackled it, slamming it into the wall and jamming his rifle barrel into its throat. A single shot ended it, blue gore splattering his face. He spun to Solara, who was back on her feet, panting. You good? He asked, wiping the mess off his cheek. She nodded, her eyes flicking to the dead Zorith, then him. You didn't have to do that. Yeah, I did, Ethan said, helping her up. Team, remember? Her hand gripped his arm, steadying herself, and for a second, their gazes locked, something raw and unspoken passing between them. Then the timer beeped. 2 minutes. They ran, bursting out of the outpost just as it erupted behind them, a fireball lighting up the night. The shockwave threw them to the dirt, and Ethan shielded Solara with his body as debris rained down. When the dust cleared, Ethan rolled off her, coughing. Solara lay sprawled, staring at the smoke-choked sky, her armor dented but intact. He crawled over, wincing as a sharp pain stabbed his side. A gash from the fight, blood soaking his jacket. You hurt? Solara asked, sitting up fast, her voice tight. Just a scratch, Ethan said, but his grimace betrayed him. She scooted closer, tearing a strip from her cloak and pressing it to his wound. Her fingers brushed his skin, cool and steady, and Ethan's breath hitched, not from pain. Hold still, she muttered, tying the makeshift bandage. You're a fool, rushing in like that. Fool who saved your ass. Ethan quipped, his voice rough. You're welcome. Solara's hands paused, her face inches from his. Up close, he could see the faint shimmer of her skin, the way her eyes softened despite her scowl. Why? She asked, quieter now. Why risk so much for me? For us. Ethan shrugged, ignoring the heat creeping up his neck. It's what I do. And maybe I like showing you cryonites that humans aren't just punching bags. She finished the bandage, her touch lingering. You're different, she said, almost to herself. I thought you weak. Fragile. But you keep proving me wrong. Don't sound so surprised, Ethan said, smirking. I'm full of tricks. A faint smile tugged at her lips, the first he'd seen, and it hit him harder than any Zorth claw. Before he could say more, a distant rumble snapped them back to reality. The war wasn't waiting. Command center's that way, Solara said, standing and offering her hand. Let's finish this. Ethan took it, her grip firm and warm, and hauled himself up. After you, Commander. The diversion had worked. Zorth forces were scattered, giving them a slim shot at the command center. But a new hurdle loomed, an energy barrier, its surface crackling with deadly light. Damn, Ethan muttered. Your blades cut through that. Solara shook her head. Zorth tech. Impenetrable. Not to me, Ethan said, digging into his pack. He pulled out a battered frequency jammer, tweaking its dials. Human tech. Ugly but effective. If I can sync it to the barrier's vibe, it'll collapse. Solara watched, half skeptical, half curious. You carry that everywhere. Never leave home without it, Ethan said, grinning. The device hummed, and the barrier flickered, then vanished. Solara's jaw dropped. Impossible, she breathed. Improbable. Ethan corrected, winking. Let's move. They slipped inside, the command center buzzing with Zorth officers oblivious to their breach. Ethan nodded to Solara, and they struck, his rifle spitting fire, her blades dancing death. The room fell silent in minutes, bodies slumped over consoles. Ethan hacked the main system, downloading command codes. This'll cripple them, he said, triumphant. Solara stepped close, her voice low with awe. You're a marvel, Ethan Kane. He met her gaze, heart pounding. Stick around. I'm just getting started. As they prepped to leave, a Zorth transmission blared. The invasion was a feint. The real target, Cryon's power core, was minutes from falling. Ethan and Solara shared a look, their fragile alliance now a lifeline. We stopped them, Solara said, steel in her voice. Together, Ethan agreed, feeling the weight and thrill of what lay ahead. The Zorth command center buzzed with a sinister hum, its glowing consoles painting Ethan's face in jagged streaks of red as he pored over the hacked data. Beside him, Solara stood like a silver statue, her blades dripping blue blood, her injured leg trembling, but her violet eyes sharp as ever. The transmission they'd intercepted hit like a gut punch. The invasion was a smokescreen. Cryon's power core, buried deep beneath the city, was the real prize, and it was rigged to blow in minutes. If it went, the whole planet would be ash. We stopped them, Solara said, her voice a blade of its own, cutting through the tension. Together, Ethan replied, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. His side ached from the gash he'd taken, but he shoved it down. Humans didn't quit, and he'd be damned if he let her see him flinch. Got a plan. The core's under the central spire. We hit fast, sabotage their rig. Solara's gaze flicked to the map. Elite guards. Reinforced blast doors. You'll die before you reach it. Not if you've got my back, Ethan said, flashing a reckless grin. I'll sneak in through the vents, human-sized, not cryonite-sized. You take the high ground, keep 'em busy. We're a damn good team when you're not yelling at me. Her lips twitched, almost a smile. You trust me to cover you? Lady, you're a walking weapon, Ethan said, stepping closer. I'd be an idiot not to. Ready. She nodded, and they bolted into the chaos. Cryon streets were a hell's cape, crystal spires crumbling, air thick with smoke and the wail of war machines. Ethan led, Solara limping but fierce beside him, her blades glinting like twin stars. Every corner hid death, drones buzzing, Zorth patrols lurking, but they moved like a unit, his grit matching her grace. Halfway to the spire, the universe threw them a curveball. A Zorth ambush erupted from the haze. 8 grunts and a warlord twice Ethan's size, its armor bristling with spikes. Their rifles snapped up, pinning them in a kill zone. No cover, no time. "Drop your toys," the warlord growled, its voice a landslide. Ethan's mind raced. Fight, and they'd be Swiss cheese. Surrender, and they'd be dead anyway. Solara stepped forward, her chin high despite the blood seeping down her leg. "I am Commander Solara of Cryon," she declared, loud and proud. "I challenge you to combat. One-on-one. Or do Zorith fear honor now?" The warlord's eyes glinted, amused. "A broken thing like you? Fine. I'll snap you, then your pet human." Ethan's gut twisted, but Solara's glance his way was a silent order. Wait. She was buying him a shot. The warlord tossed its rifle aside, claws flexing, and charged. Solara met it, blades flashing, but her leg faltered. A claw slashed her arm, blue blood spraying. She hissed, ducking a killing blow, and Ethan's hands itched for his rifle. The grunts watched him, daring him to move. Solara stumbled, the warlord's claw arcing for her neck. Screw waiting. Ethan fired, plasma scorching the beast's side. It roared, spinning toward him, but Solara pounced, burying her blade in its spine. It dropped dead, and the grunts opened fire. Ethan tackled her behind a slab of crystal as bolts chewed the ground. "Nice plan," he panted, reloading. "Now we're screwed." "You shot too soon," Solara snapped, clutching her arm. "I had it. Sure, and I'm a cryonite prince," Ethan quipped, peeking out. 6 grunts left, closing fast. They were toast unless he pulled something crazy. His eyes snagged on a wrecked drone, its core flickering. "Bingo. Cover me," he whispered. Solara nodded, blades ready to spite the pain. Ethan darted out, bolts zipping past, and reached the drone. He tore into its guts, hot-wiring the core with sweaty fingers. The grunts were yards away when he chucked it. Boom! The explosion lit the street, shredding 2 Zorith and stunning the rest. Solara surged up, a silver blur, finishing them off. She turned to him, breathing hard, blue blood streaking her face. "That was genius," Ethan offered, grinning through the adrenaline. "Reckless," she said, stepping close. Her hand grazed his arm, her touch sparking something wild in him. "But effective. Human specialty," he said, voice rough. "We're not done yet." A distant boom rattled the city. The spire loomed, its base swarming with Zorith elites. Solara's jaw tightened. "The core's critical. We're cutting it close." "Then let's make it quick," Ethan said, leading the charge. They crept toward the vent shaft, his plan their lifeline. But as he pried it open, a shadow fell. A Zorith commander, its armor gleaming, flanked by a dozen guards. It spotted them, sneering. "Human filth," it spat. "You think you can win?" Ethan raised his rifle, but Solara stepped up, her voice ice. "We don't think. We do." The commander laughed, signaling its guards. "End them." Chaos erupted. Guards rushed, Ethan firing, Solara slashing. A claw raked his chest, pain flaring, but he kept shooting. Solara faltered, her leg giving out, and 3 Zorith closed on her. Ethan roared, slamming into them, his rifle blazing. A fist sent him sprawling, weapons skidding away. The commander towered over him, claw raised. Pathetic. Then Solara struck, blades piercing its back. It collapsed, but more guards swarmed. Ethan grabbed his rifle, firing blind, but they were drowning, until a roar split the air. Cryonite warriors stormed in, cutting through the Zorith like a tide. The guards fell, and the fight turned. Ethan slumped, blood soaking his shirt. Solara dropped beside him, her hand finding his, slick with both their blood. "We made it," she rasped, her grip fierce. "Barely," Ethan said, squeezing back, his grin shaky. "Told you we're a team." Her eyes softened, a flicker of warmth breaking through. Maybe humans aren't so fragile. Before he could crack wise, a cryonite captain loomed over them. "Commander, the core's second from overload. We need to go now." Solara's face paled. "We can't." "No time," the captain barked. "It's lost." Ethan's mind raced, that stubborn human spark flaring. He turned to Solara, reckless as ever. "I can stop it. Give me a shot." "Ethan, no. she said, gripping his hand tighter. You'll die. He met her gaze, steady despite the chaos. Trust me, Solara. One last crazy idea. She hesitated, then nodded, her voice fierce. Together, they staggered toward the spire, the core's hum a deafening pulse. It glowed ahead, a ticking bomb of Zorith tech. Ethan's hand shook as he reached the controls, Solara at his side, her presence a lifeline in the storm. Ready? She asked, her voice cutting through the roar. Born ready, he said, diving into the fight of his life. The power core loomed like a caged supernova, its jagged pulses tearing through the spire's crystalline guts, casting wild shadows that danced like ghosts on a bender. Ethan Kane's hands hovered over the alien console, his brain a mess of half-baked plans and pure stubborn juice. Sweat stung his eyes, blood soaked his jacket from a gash in his side, but he didn't flinch. Humans don't quit, and he'd be damned if he let Solara see him crack. Beside him, the cryonite commander leaned hard against the console, her silver skin streaked with blue blood, her injured leg shaking like a leaf in a storm. Her violet eyes darted between him and the core, sharp as her blades, and twice as deadly. Any bright ideas, human? Solara's voice was a razor, slicing through the core's deafening hum. She was a warrior, not some tech geek, and this Zorith rig was Greek to her. Hell, it was Greek to him too. Ethan swallowed, throat dry as Cryon's ash-choked streets. It's gonna blow. We don't stabilize it. This whole rock's toast. He jabbed at the console, but it spat back Zorith gibberish, red lights, screaming overload. Shit. Solara's hand brushed his arm, cool and steady, like she was anchoring him to the damn planet. You gotta see her, Ethan. Think. That touch lit a fuse. He squinted at the core, its heart pulsing with wild energy, and spotted something, a ring of magnetic coils, twisted out of whack, letting the power run rogue. It hit him like a brick. It was damn near identical to an old Earth fusion reactor he'd gawked at in a museum, just bigger, meaner, and alien as hell. Same guts, same rules. Wait, he said, pointing. Those coils, they're screwed up. Realign him, and we might tame this beast. Solara's frown cut deeper than her blades. Ow! Controls are locked tighter than a Zorith warlord's ego. Ethan's grin was pure chaos, adrenaline pumping. Who needs controls? He yanked out his multi-tool, flipping it to wrench mode with a flick of his wrist. I'm going old school. Her eyes blew wide, panic flashing. That's insane. The radiation'll cook you alive. And I'll be a crispy hero, he cut in, already bolting for the access hatch. I'm human, Solara. Stubborn's my middle name. She lunged, grabbing his wrist with a grip that could crush steel. Ethan, stop. There's got to be another way. He locked eyes with her, steady as stone despite the fear clawing his gut. There isn't. Trust me, Commander. I've got this. Her fingers tightened, then slid off slow, like she was letting go of more than just his arm. Don't die on me, you idiot, she muttered, voice rough. Wouldn't dream of screwing you over, he shot back, winking like a lunatic. He tore the hatch open with a grunt and dove in, heat slamming him like a fist. The crawlspace was a furnace, air thick with ozone and death, but he pushed through, inching toward the coils. They glowed ahead, spitting energy like pissed-off dragons, their misalignment a countdown to Armageddon. First coil, his skin prickled, radiation sinking in. He twisted the wrench, hands steady despite the burn, and it clicked into place. One down. The second was a bastard, heat blistering his palms, but he muscled through. Click. Two. The core's hum shifted, less frantic, but it wasn't enough. Third coil. His vision swam, lungs screaming, but he locked it in, sweat dripping like rain. The last one was a nightmare, fused tight from the heat. Ethan hammered it, wrench slipping, curses flying. Move, you son of a... The core roared, radiation thick enough to chew. He flashed to Solara, her fierce glare, her damn pride. She'd called him fragile, but here he was, trying to save her world. He'd prove her wrong or die trying. With a guttural yell, he slammed the wrench down, and the coil gave, snapped into place like it had been waiting for him. The core's light mellowed from blood red to cool blue, its hum dropping to a purr. Ethan slumped, chest heaving, victory tasting like ash and triumph. But fate's a bitch. A stray energy arc lashed out, tagging his leg. Pain exploded white-hot, and he hit the deck, dragging himself back. "Solara," he croaked, voice shredded. She was there fast, hauling him out with a strength that belied her wounds. He crashed to the floor, cool crystal kissing his burns, and she dropped beside him, hands flying to his leg. "You're a wreck," she said, ripping her cloak to bandage him, her touch firm but shaking. Ethan grinned, weak but cocky. "Heroic wreck, right?" Her laugh was soft, raw, like she couldn't hold it back. "Insane, stupid, heroic, yeah." She tied the bandage, fingers brushing his skin, and damn if his heart didn't skip, pain or not. He grabbed her hand, their blood-slick fingers locking. The war faded for a second, just them, two busted-up fighters alive against the odds. "Couldn't do it without you," he rasped, throat tight. Solara's thumb traced his knuckles, her eyes softening in a way that hit harder than any Zorth claw. "Maybe humans aren't the trash I thought." Before he could fire back, the spire shook, alarms blared, red lights strobing like a ray from hell. Solara's face snapped to warrior mode. "Zorth, they know we're here." Ethan hauled himself up, leaning on her like she was his damn lifeline. "Then we give him a fight they won't forget." She steadied him, her grip fierce, and they staggered toward the exit. The core was safe, for now, but Cryon was still a battlefield, and the Zorth weren't done. A shadow loomed outside, a war machine's growl rattling the air. Solara's blades flashed, Ethan's rifle hummed. The spire's shadow clawed across Cryon's war-ravaged streets, sharp and twisted like a predator ready to pounce. Ethan Kane limped beside Solara, his leg a throbbing mess from an energy burn that felt like someone had shoved a plasma torch in his thigh and twisted it. His pulse rifle was still clutched tight, though, empty or not, it was his lifeline, same as the stubborn fire in his gut that kept him moving. The air stank of ozone and blood, the ground a graveyard of shattered crystal and Zorth corpses, their jagged armor glinting under a sky that roared with plasma storms. "Zorth war machines," Solara said, her voice low and tight, violet eyes scanning the horizon like a hawk. "They're massing for a final strike." Her silver skin caught the last gasps of sunlight, shimmering through the grime of battle, and Ethan had to yank his gaze away before he got lost in it. He squinted through the haze. There, at the city's edge, hulking shadows lumbered into view. Zorth tanks, their cannons glowing like the devil's own grin. "They're gunning for the spire," he said, voice rough. "Take out the core, even if it's stable now." "They don't quit, do they?" Solara's jaw tightened, her hands flexing on her chip blades. "Cryon's defenses are gone. Your little stunt with the core bought us hours, not days." She didn't say it, but Ethan caught the edge in her tone. She was impressed, even if she'd rather choke than admit it. His mind kicked into overdrive, the human spark flaring bright. "Then we don't sit here waiting to die. We hit M first." She spun on him, eyes wide like he'd just suggested jumping into a plasma storm naked. "Attack? You and me against that." Ethan grinned, reckless and wild, the kind of grin that had gotten him through worse shit than this. "Just us, yeah, and a little chaos. They think we're beaten. Let's use it. Sneak in, rig their lead tank to blow. One big bang, and the rest go down like dominoes." Solara barked a laugh, sharp and incredulous. "You're certifiable, Ethan Kane, and you're into it." He shot back, winking despite the pain screaming up his leg. "Admit it, Commander. I'm growing on you." Her gaze softened for a split second, a flicker of warmth breaking through the ice, but she masked it fast. "You're right about one thing. They won't expect it. Let's move." They slipped through the ruins like ghosts, Ethan's limp slowing him but not stopping him, Solara a steady shadow at his side. She didn't call him human like it was a slur anymore. Now it felt like a title, earned in blood and grit. The Zorth staging ground stretched ahead, a nightmare of metal and fire, tanks lined up like a row of executioners. Ethan pointed to the biggest bastard of the bunch, a behemoth bristling with cannons. "That's our target," he whispered, breath hot against her ear as they crouched in the shadows. "Power cells under it. Overload that, and we've got ourselves a fireworks show." Solara nodded, blades gleaming in her hands. "I'll cover you. Don't be stupid and die." "Stupid's my charm," he said, flashing a grin that was all teeth and bravado. He darted out, weaving through the wreckage, heart slamming against his ribs. The tank loomed, its crew too busy gloating to notice the human sneaking beneath it. Ethan slid under, wrench in hand, and tore into the power cell, a tangle of alien tech that made his head spin. He'd hacked worse, though. His fingers flew, sweat beading on his brow, rigging a feedback loop that had turned the thing into a bomb. One slip, and he'd be a smear on the pavement. A shout ripped through the air. Zorith guards, their ugly mugs twisting as they spotted him. Bolts sizzled past, one grazing his arm, and Ethan rolled, firing blind with his empty rifle just to spook him. Solara exploded from the shadows, a silver hurricane, her blades carving through armor like it was butter. She was a goddamn force, but the guards kept coming, and Ethan's hack was still live wires and prayers. "Ethan, hurry!" she yelled, parrying a claw that nearly took her head off. Blue blood sprayed, hers and theirs, and Ethan's gut clenched. She was fading fast. "Almost there," he grunted, twisting the last wire with shaking hands. The cell hummed, a low, deadly growl, and he scrambled out, yelling, "Run now!" They bolted, the tank's hum spiking to a shriek behind them. Ethan grabbed Solara's arm, half dragging her as her leg buckled, and the explosion hit, a thunderclap that shook the world, a chain reaction tearing through the Zorith line. Tanks burst like overripe fruit, fire and metal raining down as the shockwave slammed them to the dirt. Heat scorched their backs, and Ethan threw himself over her, shielding her from the worst of it. The dust settled slow, Ethan coughing up half a lung as he rolled off. Solara lay beside him, her armor scorched, chest heaving, but alive. He crawled closer, wincing as his leg screamed. "You good?" She nodded, her hand finding his slick with sweat and blood. "That was unreal. Told you," he rasped, grinning through the grime. "Human chaos. Works every time." Her laugh was soft, real, and it hit him square in the chest, warmer than the blast they'd just dodged. But the war wasn't playing nice. A shadow loomed through the smoke, a Zorith warlord, its armor gleaming like a fresh forged blade, flanked by elite guards who'd somehow dodged the boom. It fixed its glowing eyes on them, claws flexing. "Human scum," it growled, voice like gravel on steel. "Your tricks end here." Ethan's rifle with a useless hunk of metal now, his leg a liability. Solara's blades were chipped, her strength bleeding out with every drop of blue staining the ground. They were out of moves, out of luck. "Any last words?" The warlord sneered, stepping closer. Ethan hauled himself up, pain be damned, and met Solara's gaze, a silent pact flashing between them. "Yeah," he said, staring the bastard down. "Fuck you." The warlord lunged, claws gleaming, but a roar split the sky. Cryonite reinforcements, tearing through the haze like a tidal wave of silver and fury. The guard scattered, caught off guard, and the warlord turned just in time to catch Solara's blade through its chest. It dropped like a sack of bricks, dead before it hit the ground. Ethan slumped, adrenaline crashing hard, and Solara caught him, her arm steady despite her own wounds. "We did it," she whispered, voice thick with exhaustion and something softer. "Verily," he croaked, leaning into her, his head buzzing. "But yeah, we did." Ethan Kane's chest heaved, every breath a knife in his ribs, as he leaned into Solara's steady grip. Her silver arms held him upright, blue blood mingling with his red on the shattered cryonite street, their hands still locked from that fleeting moment of victory. The Zorith warlord lay dead at their feet, Solara's blade buried in its chest, but the air screamed with danger. Zorith war machines roared closer, their cannons painting the horizon in hellish red. Cryonite reinforcements had bought them a breather, silver warriors clashing with Zorith stragglers in a storm of blades and plasma, but the spire loomed behind them, its core humming with a fragile pulse. One wrong move, and Cryon would be a memory. Core stable, but not for long. Ethan rasped, his burned legs screaming as he shifted his weight. Zorth will hit it again. We need to end this, now. Solara's violet eyes flicked to the spire, then back to him, fierce and searching. You're half dead, Ethan. You can't keep going. He flashed a grin, all teeth and bravado despite the pain clawing his insides. Half dead's my best look, Commander. Besides, you're not exactly showroom fresh either. His gaze dropped to her leg, still oozing blue, her chipped blades trembling in her hands. Her jaw tightened, but a spark of amusement flickered in her eyes. Stubborn fool. What's your plan this time? Ethan squinted through the smoke, spotting a Zorth command skiff hovering beyond the battlefield. A sleek, ugly bastard bristling with comms arrays and glowing with the kind of tech that screamed Big Boss. Its escorts were distracted, tangled in the cryonite counterattack. That skiff, he said, pointing. It's coordinating their whole damn assault. We take it down, their army's headless. Game over. Solara followed his gaze, her expression shifting from doubt to grim resolve. It's suicide. Anti-air guns, elite guards. You'd need a miracle. Good thing I'm human. Ethan shot back, his voice rough but electric. We specialize in miracles. You with me? She hesitated, her hand tightening on his arm, then nodded sharply. Together, they moved fast, weaving through the chaos like a pair of battered ghosts. Cryonite warriors parted for them, some staring at Ethan with newfound respect. No longer just the fragile human, but the guy who'd saved their core. Solara led, her limp barely slowing her, blades flashing to clear a path through stray Zorth drones. Ethan kept pace, his rifle useless, but his mind racing, piecing together a plan crazier than anything he'd pulled yet. The skiff loomed closer, its shadow swallowing the street. Anti-air turrets swiveled, spitting plasma that scorched the ground yards away. Ethan grabbed Solara, yanking her behind a toppled spire as bolts rained down. Her body pressed against his, her breath hot against his neck, and for a split second, the war faded, just her strength, her fire. Close one, he muttered, heart hammering for reasons beyond the near miss. Focus, she hissed, but her hand lingered on his chest, steadying them both. How do we get up there? Ethan scanned the wreckage, spotting a wrecked cryonite skimmer half buried in rubble. Its grav lift still flickered, barely alive. That's our ride, he said, pointing. If I can hotwire it, we'll be knocking on their door in no time. Solara's eyes widened. That thing's scrap. You can't. Watch me. He cut in, already limping toward it. He tore into the skimmer's guts, fingers flying over wires and crystals, pain be damned. Solara stood guard, blades ready, her silhouette a silver beacon against the firelit chaos. A Zora scout drone buzzed too close. She sliced it in half without blinking. Show off. Ethan called, grinning as the skimmer hummed to life, its grav lift coughing but holding. Move! Solara snapped, hauling him aboard. The skimmer lurched skyward, wobbling like a drunk bird, and Ethan gunned it toward the skiff. Turrets locked on, plasma bolts sizzling past, one clipping the skimmer's edge and sending sparks flying. Solara clung to him, her arms locked around his waist, and damn if that didn't fuel him more than adrenaline. Hold on, he yelled, banking hard to dodge another volley. The skiff's hatch was dead ahead, guarded by two Zorth elites with rifles glowing like death. Ethan didn't slow. He aimed the skimmer straight at them, full throttle. Are you insane? Solara shouted, her voice half lost in the wind. Certified, he roared, slamming the controls. The skimmer crashed through the hatch, crushing one guard and sending the other sprawling. The impact threw Ethan and Solara forward, skidding across the skiff's deck in a tangle of limbs and curses. Pain exploded in Ethan's leg, but he rolled to his feet, dragging Solara up with him. The skiff's bridge was a nightmare of flashing consoles and snarling Zorth officers. Their commander, a hulking brute with eyes like molten slag, spun to face them, its claws slashing the air. Human filth, it bellowed. You dare. Ethan didn't let it finish. He dove for a console, ripping out his multi-tool and jamming it into the wiring. Solara, by me time. She was already moving, a silver blur, her blades clashing with the commander's claws. Blue blood sprayed, her leg buckling under a brutal swipe, but she didn't falter. Every strike was defiance, every block a promise. Ethan's hands flew, hot-wiring the skiff's navigation to overload its core. One wrong move, and they'd all be space dust. The commander landed a hit, slamming Solara against a wall. She gasped, blades slipping, and Ethan's heart stopped. "Solara!" he yelled, abandoning the console and tackling the bastard. It roared, tossing him like a rag doll, but he clung to its arm, jamming his tool into a joint and twisting. Sparks flew, the limb locking up, and Solara surged back, her blade piercing its chest. It collapsed, gurgling. Ethan scrambled to the console, blood dripping from a fresh cut on his brow. Almost there, the skiff's core screamed, red alerts flashing. He slammed the final command, locking the overload. "Done. We gotta go." Solara grabbed him, her strength fading but fierce, and they staggered to the skimmer. It was barely functional, smoking from the crash, but Ethan gunned it, the skiff's bridge erupting behind them as they dove out the hatch. The explosion was a supernova, a shockwave that sent the skimmer spinning. Ethan held Solara tight, her body pressed to his, as they crashed into Cryon's ruins, rolling across the dirt in a heap. The world was a haze of smoke and pain, Ethan's ears ringing as he lay sprawled in Cryon's wreckage, Solara's weight half-pinning him. The skiff's explosion lit the sky, a firestorm that swallowed the Zorith command structure, its shockwave rippling through their army. Below, Zorith war machines stuttered, their coordination gone, headless, just like Ethan planned. Cryonite warriors surged, seizing the chaos, their blades carving through disoriented foes. Ethan coughed, wincing as he shifted. "We alive?" Solara stirred, her silver face streaked with ash, her hand still gripping his. "Barely," she rasped, her voice raw but warm. Her eyes met his, wide with something beyond gratitude, admiration, maybe, or something deeper. "You did it, Ethan. You saved Cryon." He grinned, shaky but proud. "Told you, human miracles." His leg throbbed, his side bled, but her gaze made it worth it. Cryonite warriors rushed to them, their captain kneeling. "Commander, the Zorith are retreating." The human, he the hero. His tone held awe, a far cry from the scorn Ethan had faced days ago. Solara stood, pulling Ethan up, her arms steady around him. "He's more than that," she said, her voice firm, her eyes locked on his. The words hit harder than any explosion, and Ethan's chest tightened, not from pain, but from the fire in her stare. A distant rumble warned of straggling Zorith, but the tide had turned. Solara squeezed his hand, her touch a promise. "We're not done fighting," she said, "but we'll do it together." Ethan nodded, his grin reckless. "Wouldn't have it any other way, Commander." Cryon's streets lay quiet for the first time in days, the air heavy with ash and the faint hum of a city clinging to life. Ethan Kane slumped against a shattered crystal wall, his leg a throbbing wreck. The makeshift bandage Solara had tied, now soaked red. His pulse rifle lay discarded, as useless as a paperweight, but his chest buzzed with something fiercer than adrenaline. Pride, maybe, or the heat of Solara's gaze as she stood over him, her silver silhouette framed by the dying glow of plasma storms. Her own wounds bled blue, her chipped blade sheathed but still trembling in her hands, yet she carried herself like a queen, unbowed despite the war that had nearly broken them both. The Zorith were gone, scattered or dead, their war machines silent husks littering the horizon. Cryonite warriors moved through the ruins, salvaging what they could, their silver armor glinting as they hauled debris or tended to the wounded. Ethan caught their glances, respect, not scorn, a far cry from the fragile human sneers he'd endured when he first landed on this rock. He'd earned it, blood and grit, and the weight of that hit harder than any Zorith claw. Solara crouched beside him, her violet eyes scanning his face like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "You look like death," she said, her voice low, rough from shouting orders and spitting defiance. "Why are you smiling?" Ethan's grin was weak but real, his teeth stained with dust. "Because we're alive, Commander. And I'm sitting here with the baddest cryonite in the galaxy. Gotta savor the moment." Her lips twitched, that rare, almost smile he was starting to crave like oxygen. "Flattery won't fix your leg," she said, but her hand rested on his arm, cool and steady, a tether in the chaos. "You saved Cryon, Ethan. I misjudged you." He raised an eyebrow, ignoring the stab of pain in his side. "Misjudged? You call me a walking liability." Said humans were one bad day from breaking. His tone was light, teasing, but there was a challenge in it, daring her to own up. Solara's gaze didn't waver, her silver skin catching the faint light of a distant spire. "I was wrong," she said, the words heavy, like they'd been carved from stone. "You're not fragile. You're—" She hesitated, searching for the right word, and Ethan's heart thudded, hanging on the pause. "Relentless." "Damn right," he said, his grin widening. "Relentless, stubborn, and a little crazy. It's the human package, baby." She snorted, a sound so uncryonite it caught him off guard. And for a second, they were just two people, not human and alien, not bodyguard and commander, just Ethan and Solara, battered but unbroken. Her hands slid to his, their fingers locking, slick with blood but warm with something neither of them dared name yet. The war had forged them, their trust tempered in fire and death, and Ethan felt it in his bones. This wasn't the end. Not for them. A cryonite captain approached, his armor dented, but his posture rigid with respect. "Commander Solara," he said, his voice carrying the weight of duty. "The Council requests your presence. The Zorith retreat is confirmed, but they'll regroup. We need to rebuild, fortify." Solara cut him off with a sharp nod, her warrior mask slipping back into place. "I'll be there." Her tone was steel, but her grip on Ethan's hand tightened, a silent promise she wasn't leaving him behind. The captain's gaze flicked to Ethan, lingering with something like awe. The human, his actions turned the tide. "The Council wishes to honor him. A medal, perhaps. Or a title." Ethan laughed, a rough, ragged sound. "Keep your medals. Just get me a beer and a medic in that order." The captain blinked, clearly unversed in human sarcasm. But Solara's lips quirked again, and that was worth more than any shiny trinket. "He's earned more than your titles," she said, her voice firm. "He's earned our trust." The captain bowed and retreated, leaving them in the quiet of the ruined street. Ethan shifted, wincing as his leg protested, and Solara's arm slid around his waist, steadying him like it was the most natural thing in the universe. "You need a healer," she said, her tone softer now, almost gentle. "And rest. Even relentless humans have limits. Don't bet on it." Ethan quipped, but he leaned into her, letting her strength prop him up. "What's next, Commander?" "Zorith will be back, and I'm guessing you're not the retiring type." Her eyes darkened, the weight of her world settling on her shoulders. "Cryon's wounded, but we'll rebuild. The Zorith underestimated us, underestimated you. They won't make that mistake again." She paused, her gaze locking on his, fierce and unguarded. "I want you with us, Ethan. Not as a hired gun, but as one of us." The words hit like a shockwave, raw and real. Ethan's throat tightened, his usual smart-ass reply dying on his tongue. "You sure about that? I'm a pain in the ass, you know. Bad at following orders." "I've noticed," Solara said, her voice dry but warm, her thumb brushing his knuckles. "But I'd rather fight with a pain in the ass than without one. You've proven what humans can do. I want to see what else you're capable of." Ethan's chest swelled, not just from pride but from the fire in her words, the way she saw him. Not as a fragile outsider, but as a partner, a force. "All right, Commander," he said, his voice low, steady despite the pain. "I'm in, but only if you admit I'm not half bad to have around." Her laugh was soft, a sound he'd kill to hear again. "You're tolerable," she said, her eyes dancing with a spark that promised trouble, good trouble, for a human. They stood together, her arm around him, his weight on her, as Cryon's spires glimmered faintly in the dusk. The war wasn't over. Zora stragglers still lurked, and the galaxy was a mess of threats waiting to pounce. But Ethan didn't care. He'd faced death, proved his worth, and earned something rarer than victory: Solara's respect, maybe even her heart. Humans were scrappy, relentless, and damn good at defying the odds. And he'd keep proving it, side by side with the fiercest warrior he'd ever met. "Let's get you patched up," Solara said, guiding him toward a cryonite medic station, her grip steady as stone. "We've got more fights ahead." Ethan grinned, reckless and alive. "Wouldn't miss M for the world, Solara." As they limped into the future, Cryon's pulse beat stronger, a city reborn in the fire of their defiance. Ethan Kane, the human who'd carried a cryonite through a war zone, wasn't just a hero. He was a legend, and this was only the beginning.